Hello, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade math students. Mrs. Johnston here again. This week I'm going to read to you this lovely book, Circumference and the Great Knight of Angleland, a Math Adventure, by Cindy Neuschwander, illustrated by Wayne Greham. And it was published by Charles Bridge Publishers. More than anything, Radius wanted to be a knight. Every day he practiced riding, sword fighting, and archery. His teacher was the brave old Sir Degrees. One day Radius's parents, Circumference and Lady Di of Ameter, came to watch his lessons. "Show us what you have learned," they said. In the riding ring, Radius mounted his horse, and Sir Degrees gave directions. "Knightly right angle, trot!" shouted Sir Degrees. Radius rode his horse at a trot to the center of the ring and made an exact right angle turn. It formed a perfect corner. So his riding arena looked like this, a circular arena. He came straight to the center, made a perfect square, and they're calling that a knightly right angle. You can always find a right angle with a fresh piece of paper. The corner of your paper is going to line up just perfectly. A knightly right. "Now double the right angle to make a straight angle," called out Sir Degrees. Radius rode at a full gallop straight across the ring. He came to an abrupt stop right in front of his parents. "Wonderful!" they exclaimed. "You have learned so much." And here was his straight across the arena run. He took a knightly right angle, he doubled it to make a straight angle, which meant he went straight across. At supper, Sir Degrees said, "Radius is the best squire I have ever taught. He is ready to go on a quest." "He is not old enough," said Circumference, looking worried. Lady Di smiled. "You were the same age, dear, when you went on your first quest." Radius sat up straighter. "I am ready, Father," he said. "Please let me go." Circumference slowly looked at each of them. Finally, he smiled and nodded. "Hurrah!" shouted Radius. "I will make you proud, but how shall I find someone in need of help?" Our neighbor, King Lel, has disappeared," Sir Degrees answered. "Many have set out to find him, but none have ever returned." "I will search until I succeed," promised Radius. The next morning, Radius made ready to go. "Remember your knightly right angle, Radius," counseled Sir Degrees. "It will serve you well." Circumference and Lady Di gave Radius an old family heirloom, a medallion in the shape of a perfect circle. "What are these numbers around the edges of the medallion?" Radius asked. "No one knows," Lady Di answered, "but it may bring you courage on your journey." Radius bid them farewell and set off. "I'm on a quest!" he exclaimed gleefully. Now, I've gotten one of these family heirlooms too, so I can use this during our quest today. Radius rode for many days through the countryside. One day he came upon a tiny village where all the cottages had rooftops pointed in steep angles. "What a quaint little town," thought Radius. "Mother would call it cute." He asked a villager about King Lel. "His castle lies beyond the mountains of Obtuse," said the villager, pointing to the east. "But take heed. There are tales of strange creatures and dangerous labyrinths. No one traveling there has ever returned." "I hope to be the first," said Radius. "Farewell and thank you." Up and down through the mountains of Obtuse, Radius rode eastward. So here's a simplified picture of the town in the mountains. Here are the cute rooftops and the mountains of Obtuse. You'll notice that a right angle's perfectly square. I'm going to try to do this with these straws. But this cute angle is much narrower than that. And the mountains of obtuse are open much wider. So we have cute rooftops and the mountains of obtuse. Finally, Radius came upon a walled castle surrounded by a watery moat. He rode cautiously onto the drawbridge. It creaked and groaned with every step. As he neared the middle, the drawbridge began to crumble. Quickly, Radius urged his horse across. Just as they reached the other side, the old drawbridge collapsed into the water with a tremendous splash. That was close, Radius exclaimed. He rode through the high gates of the castle. In the courtyard, Radius saw a parchment hanging on the door. He took the parchment and read the faded writing. Warning, stranger, friend, or foe, changes wait as forth you go. You must make a knightly right, finding the big, straight, and slight. One wrong turn means loss to all, in a writhing, screaming fall. Find the right to reach the king, or you will feel the dragon's sting. The brothers Zig and Zag. What can this mean, thought Radius, clutching his medallion for courage. He rode through the doorway into a circular chamber. In the middle of the stone floor, Radius could see a carved circle with a line across its center. All around him, arches led to different rooms. Which way should I go? He wondered aloud. He read from the parchment. You must make a knightly right. Sir Degrees and I practiced many right angle turns. Just then something flapped out of the shadows and bumped his arm. Oof! Grunted Radius as his medallion went flying. The medallion rolled away and came to a stop on the carved stone circle. Radius noticed that the number 90 pointed directly toward one of the arches. Starting at 0 on my medallion, if I go to the center and then to the number 90, that forms a right angle. That's the knightly right, he cried. Radius swung himself back onto his horse and rode through the arch that was a knightly right, or 90, on the medallion. So here's the medallion. If he lined up his side to the center, the one arch pointed right to 90, which makes a right angle. The way was dark and damp. Around him, unseen things scuttled in the corners. By the light of a flickering candle, Radius read the parchment again. Finding next, big, straight, and slight. What is big, he wondered. Could it be something or even larger than a knightly right angle? He thought for a moment. The mountains of Obtuse were shaped like big angles, he remembered. As Radius looked around for a way out, spider webs caught in his hair and tickling legs brushed against his face. Ahead, Radius saw several hallways. Each had a circle carved in front of it. If I hold the medallion over a circle, then the number measures the angle to the hallway, he said. The angle of the first hallway measured only 55 on the medallion. So on the medallion, straight across and up to 55. That's smaller than a right. As Radius measured the angle of each hallway, he found only one that was bigger than a right angle. One angle measured 120 on the medallion. So across and over to 120. Radius entered that hallway, but it entered at a curving stairway. Radius dismounted and told his horse to wait. Stairs are no place for you, he said. Stay right here. I'll come back as soon as I can. The stairway down was narrow and steep. I must be under the castle by now, Radius thought. He noticed that the farther down he went, the hotter it was. The stairs came to an end at a fiery pit where huge flames leaped up like angry snapping jaws. Two bridges spanned the inferno. They both started from the same spot, but they crossed the fire pit at different angles. After big, the parchment reads straight, Radius remembered. That's 180 on my medallion. You can't get an angle straighter than that. He took a deep breath and ran across the bridge that went straight over the roaring fire. On the other side, Radius heaved a sigh of relief. He opened a heavy door and entered a dark tunnel. The door clanged shut behind him. Raspy snuffling came from deep in the darkness. 4 glowing eyes appeared and began moving slowly toward him. Clutching his medallion, Radius hurtled down the tunnel. As he passed the eyes, he brushed against scales that felt like cold chainmail. Radius ran blindly on, stumbling as the floor started to slope upward. Behind him, heavy thumps echoed in the darkness. The tunnel ended. Other tunnels shot off at different angles. In front of each was a carved circle glowing with its own light. The parchment says a slight angle, Radius mumbled, like the rooftops in that cute little village that I passed through. A cute little angle is what I need. Something less than 90 on my medallion. The smallest angle measured 40, so he turned there. The thumps grew louder. Something snuffled and sniffed as if hunting for him. So a 40-degree angle goes to the center and then out to 40. Just a really cute little angle. Radius ran through the darkness. Next will be the right to reach the king. Another nightly right angle of 90 degrees. At least the last angle will be easy, he gasped. He was wrong. In the dim light, he came across 4 corridors, which all seemed to be right angles. Fingers fumbling, he measured quickly with the medallion. 90, 90, 90, and 90 again. Slow down, Radius told himself, and measure once more. He carefully lined up the medallion and read the numbers. The first angle was 93. Too big, he said. The next angle was 85. Too small, he muttered. The third one was 89. Almost right, he said. Then there was a great whooshing sound, and thick smoke filled the tunnel. Radius was caught inside a dark cloud. Coughing and sputtering, he felt his way toward the remaining corridor. I hope this is the one, he whispered. Thump, thump, thump. Something was lurching toward him. He stumbled. Suddenly, Radius ran into a wall of stone. He was trapped. The thumping grew louder. Whatever it was big, and it was right behind him. Radius turned around and stood with his back to the wall. His arm bumped into a latch, a handle. He pushed with all his strength, and a door swung open. Brilliant sunshine met his eyes. "Welcome!" a voice bellowed. "Who might you be?" Radius squinted into the brightness. "I am Radius, son of Circumference and Lady Di of Amador, and squire to Sir Degrees. I am searching for King Lel." "It seems you have found him," chuckled the king. "But how did you do it?" Radius bowed. "My medallion helped me figure out which paths to take. Knowledge gave me the courage to keep going," he explained. "But there were frightful things in there." A whimpering came from behind the door. King Lel opened it wider, and Radius jumped back. "Dragons," he gulped. "A pair of them." "They are my loyal pets, the Lel dragons," explained the king. He scratched their heads. "The poor beasts and I were trapped in the maze by my evil cousins Zig and Zag. But we are free now that you have found the way through the labyrinth." "Young squire," he continued, "anyone brave enough and smart enough to figure out that maze deserves his knighthood." With Radius's medallion, they easily found their way back through the maze. To celebrate King Lel's freedom, invitations were sent to all the neighboring knights and ladies. Circumference and Lady Di of Amador and even old Sir Degrees came. Radius and King Lel went to the moat to greet each group of guests. When King Lel whistled and called out, "Pair of Lels!" the two dragons stretched across the moat, side by side. They became a living drawbridge for the guests to cross. Everyone asked Radius how he found his way through the maze. "I discovered the secret of the medallion," Radius said. "The numbers divide a circle into 360 parts. I can use these parts to measure any angle. I call the parts of a circle degrees, in honor of my teacher, Sir Degrees." Radius drew a picture of his medallion and took out an arrow from his quiver. "Let's say this arrow points to a hallway. The number shows how many degrees are in the angle. A right angle measures 90 degrees. A straight line measures 180 degrees. I call angles bigger than 90 degrees obtuse, after the mountains of obtuse. Angles smaller than 90 degrees I call acute. They look like the roofs of small village I traveled through." King Lel told Radius to kneel. "For your bravery and intelligence, I knight you Sir Radius," the king proclaimed. "From this day forth, let the kingdom be called Angleland. Banners will fly on every castle tower. They shall show nightly right angles of 90 degrees, small, acute angles, large, obtuse angles, and straight angles of 180 degrees. Rise now, great knight of Angleland." The crowd cheered, and Radius rose to greet them. Angleland was the only kingdom to have a castle with a living drawbridge. The cry, "Pair of Lels!" brought the two dragons over to the moat. They became so famous that today, parallel means any straight lines side by side, the same distance apart, like the Lel dragons. Angleland is still there on very old maps, but today we call it England. Now, of course, this was a very silly book with lots and lots of math puns, but let me show you where we are with this. In our 4th grade standards and continuing in 5th and in 6th grade, we can identify angles by their measurement, how wide open they are, and we can use a protractor, which is a less fancy version of the medallion that Radius had. So let's take a look at that. Here's my medallion, called a protractor. Just like his medallion, I've got numbers across the top, but mine confusingly has 2 sets of numbers. Starting at the left, it goes from 0 to 180 this way, and starting on the right, it goes from 0 to 180 this way. In order for us to use this and not get completely confused by that, I have a 4-step method for using a protractor that I'm going to show you today. Step 1, you take a look at your angle and you give it a look. Just glancing at it, is it acute or obtuse? Or is it maybe right? So I'm going to take this angle as an example. If I'm taking a look at that, it doesn't appear to be a right angle, and my square corner paper shows that it's not. In fact, it seems to be skinnier than that. So I'm pretty sure that this is a cute little angle. It's acute. Then I take my protractor and I line up the corner, which is the vertex of my angle, and I put it at the very center of the protractor. Every protractor looks a little bit different. Mine has a little circular hole right there at the center. And I'm going to line up that circular hole right at the corner, the vertex of my angle. Step 3, I'm going to line up one of the sides of my angle with the guidelines of the protractor that line up with 0. This is where most kids get hung up. I'm going to make sure that one of the lines of my angle, I'm going to use this one just because I feel like it, lines up with these guidelines on my protractor. So I line up the corner at the center, and then I make sure that my guideline lines up that first side of the angle with 0. Step 4, I find where the other side of the angle points. There are 2 number options. So as I go up here, I notice that I could be on my smaller numbers, which would mean it's between 30 and 40, about 35 degrees. Or it could be between 140 and 150, about 145 degrees. So how do I choose? What? If my angle is acute, I choose the measurement less than 90 degrees. We decided that my angle was acute, so I'm going to say that this one is 35 degrees. If it were 145, it would be an obtuse angle, and this one certainly is not. That is definitely a cute little angle. So I'm going to go with 35 degrees on that one. Now, as another example, I have here an obtuse angle. I'm going to take the corner of my obtuse angle, stick it at the corner of my protractor, the center of my protractor, and line up one side with 0. Then it looks like my other side is either going through 40 or 140. How do I decide? Well, since this is an obtuse angle, it's got to be more than 90 degrees, so it must be 140. My cameraman, who is my daughter Katie, has informed me that this video has been going on almost forever, and you're probably tired of watching, and that's great. Now I want you to go on IXL or Prodigy or onto your printables at commoncoresheets.com and find yourself some fun angles to practice with. Or if you can't find fun angles to practice with, just find some plain old angles to practice with. It's been great seeing you. I wish I could see you in person. This would be a whole lot more fun for all of us if we could do this together. Stay safe, keep your social distance, and I'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye.